Oscar Piastri is officially a race winner. We're drinking Foster's in his honor.
We are.
But the question is he celebrating as much as he thought he would?
That is ultimately the question. What a tricky my son, my almost 5-year-old son. My wife asked him a question. This will make sense here in a second. She was like, "How old's your dad?" He was like, "Tricky. 14." I was like, "No, he's not 14. I'm 35." But no, tricky for Oscar.
Tricky.
He's got to have so many emotions. Obviously, Lando. We'll get to him. Oscar,
I don't know if Oscar really has so many emotions,
dude,
but he's definitely
literally
the cucumber of the field.
Oh my God. The commentary today was like, it's like this guy's just some Zen master as he's driving, just zero emotion.
The way, you know what it reminded me of? I was like, man, Ocon celebrated so much more when he topped like free practice 3 one day than this guy is on his first race win ever.
Yeah. Well, Ocon is going to be probably racing for Haas next year.
It's looking like it.
Which is better than where he's at now. But yeah, Oscar, he won. It was a complex win in that his teammate, who was 5 seconds ahead going into the last couple of laps, slowed down, almost stopped on the freaking straight and let him pass.
Yeah.
Should that be happening in F1?
Well, it's a weird day in Formula One when a team gets 1 and 2 and you don't feel like they won.
Yes.
And that's where we're at. And that's what we're going to discuss on F1 God. Rolling Start. Welcome to this. I'm James.
I'm Ben.
And we are going to talk all things about the Hungarian Grand Prix, because what is a track that is top 5 of the hardest to overtake, and if we're being completely honest, was very boring up until the last 15
The
laps.
Only thing that was exciting was all the drama between the McLaren boys, the drama that Max was having with his team. He was livid.
It literally all happened into the back 15 to 20 laps of the race. We started seeing Max lose his marbles.
Mad
again.
Max.
Yeah, we started seeing Mad Max come out. We've got Lando pulling ahead, ignoring his race engineers and team orders, and all of a sudden the race became alive.
Yeah,
but on paper, you know it's going to be a rough weekend when what the people like leading into the weekend, all the F1 people in the paddock are saying is like, this is the strategy weekend. This is where the race gets really important, where you stop and when you stop. And you're just going,
that's code.
Great. That's code for it's going to be a snooze fest.
There's going to be 0 passing on track, people, because it's all going to be won and lost in the strategy, which if you talk to Lando and Oscar, yeah, it was a strategy. If you talk to Max, it was a strategy weekend. So they're not wrong. The thing that made it exciting was how the drivers reacted to said strategy.
Yeah. So let's dive into McLaren. Obviously, we start the race with Lando Norris, the current favorite in the World Championship to take it to Max.
Oh, yeah.
On pole position. So he's starting the race. He's on pole.
Oscar's second.
P2. So we've got a McLaren locked out front row, which is exactly what you want. You've got Max in third, which is exactly what you do not want.
True.
And then you've got, obviously, Hamilton and the rest of the field behind them. What happens at the go is that Lando gets a pretty terrible start.
Yeah,
he tries to cut off Piastri, which he kind of manages, but then realizes that Max has taken advantage of his crap start and is starting to come around the outside. So then he goes to cover off Max, runs Max wide off of the track. They're going 3 wide into the first corner, which is so sick.
It was incredible.
I was like, this is someone is going to break or someone's going off.
And nobody crashed.
In all of the chaos between Norris and Verstappen, Piastri, calm as a cucumber and cool and
God.
collected as a cucumber, goes straight through and takes the lead of the race and puts in one of the best first stints of the race, period.
It was incredible.
The guy who from the start of his career, everyone has been saying he's got tons of talent. He's got to learn how to manage the tires.
Yep.
First part of this race, absolutely, completely flawless. Pulls ahead of all of the drama. Norris runs Max off. Of course, Max thinks that it's Norris's fault, so he does not give the place back. The team has to tell him to do it. This was the start of Max's meltdown.
Well, I don't know if it was the start.
It was.
Crofty would have said, listen.
It was just 2:30 a.m.
Max was up till 3 a.m. and then he had to get up again early. Okay. Well, I don't know if it was the start of Max's meltdown.
Not according to Crofty.
Not according to Crofty. Crofty is like, wait a second. This guy was up till 3 a.m. sim racing. He got up earlier again doing more sim racing. I don't know if he was competing, if it was like part of his like sim competition team.
Max is a gamer. He always has been. I don't understand why this is a part of the argument.
Here's my thing.
He did a 24-hour Le Mans race the night before a race this year and won.
Yes. However, I'm going to go back to last year for a second. Last year, do whatever the heck you want if you're Max.
Oh, he could have given up 3/4 through the season.
He could have just retired and said, okay, guys, I'm done and I'm still going to win. This year, there's 7 drivers who have won a race this year. Now, Max pulled out early in this season to where he's ahead. He's like ahead like 76 points. So he's still the favorite to win. But I don't think when the competition is this stiff this year, you should be compromising your race day in that way. He was driving angry. He was driving erratic.
Yeah, he was
driving pissed. And part of it's like, Crofty's like, dude, the guy didn't get any sleep. Like, this isn't like,
he started the day cranky.
Yeah, he was frustrated. So anyway,
I think that could be partly to do with a lack of sleep. However, let's keep in mind he's not our 35-year-old selves with 2 kids and no full-time
I'm in
nanny.
bed by like 9:30.
Exactly. Like, he's 20-something years old. This is his life. This is all he does every day. He doesn't have a job during the week. This is his
what a
life.
Concept.
This is all that he does. Racing is all that he does. And so who knows? Maybe he suffers from insomnia before a race night and playing video games calms him down. It's the opposite of what my psychologist would tell me with the blue light. But yeah, you know what I mean? It's like,
maybe
he's young. Like,
I mean, it's worked for him so far.
Before. This year, it worked for him. He won. Everyone trolled him. And the next day,
though.
It did not work today. But was it Max that did not work today? Or is it the fact that the car and all of its upgrades completely flopped? And worse, they fell behind Mercedes and lost a podium to Mercedes. I would argue not because of Max's racing skills, although they are questionable. And we'll get to that in a moment.
We will.
The strategy, if they were the king of strategy last weekend, they were the jokers this weekend.
Oh, that's well said.
Thank you so much.
Very nice.
It's the Fosters.
A couple things real quick for context as well. So I think Max was frustrated on a couple levels. The strategy was one.
Yeah.
Like you said. The upgrades not performing is another one.
Someone told him no earlier in that day. That was another thing.
His teammate not performing. Here's the thing. There's a fine line with Max and his teammates. He's like, you need to perform enough to lock out second place to make sure that no one can get second in the constructors and that we can win the constructors. But you can't.
You're doing me no good at P17, dude.
You're doing me no good. So I think Max is like, you have to be good enough to make sure we win constructors, but not good enough to actually compete with me. And not to even mention anything about some of the other rumors and, things going on at Red Bull. So I think there's a lot going on that was frustrating. And for him to say, hang on a second, we're behind in the development race now?
Yeah.
McLaren has the fastest car?
Man.
Like, and our strategy's whack? What is going on? And he had a bad night's sleep. So, I mean.
And he had a bad night's sleep. Yeah. It was embarrassing. It was kind of awkward to, like, if someone's having like an argument and it's just awkward to listen to. And you're like, I feel like I shouldn't be here right now.
Can I tell you a story real quick?
Yes.
Okay. So I was like 13. And
wait, what kind of story is this? Because like we have
I know.
Okay.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We're good. Arguing when you're in the room. So I'm 13. I was with my dad's company. We're finishing a painting job at this person's house. They will remain unnamed. But we are finishing cleaning up and moving stuff around. And the folks that live there decide to have a all-out yelling match as we're in the house.
You're 13.
I'm 13, and we're like,
and a non-confrontational teenager.
And we have to we had to move this tanning bed from one room to the other because it's a really nice house. And you're just in there, and like, it's a large house, and these folks are having a full-blown yelling match because it was like we didn't exist. We were just the workers. But so awkward. But today, McLaren, Red Bull, you're there, and you're like, wait, guys, I mean, everyone, millions of people around the world that are listening to this right now.
Yes.
Get a room. Deal with this offline.
I mean, he's telling his race engineer, he's basically blowing steam off when he tries to overtake Hamilton at one point.
Yeah.
He says, Hamilton ran me wide, which he didn't. That Max wasn't where he needed to be.
No.
And his engineer, JP, comes on the line. He says, your front axle wasn't, past his rear.
Yeah.
You didn't have him at the cornering or whatever.
Which was interesting that he was like correcting him and being like, Max. I think JP was pissed too. He's like, no, Max, you're wrong.
Yes.
That's essentially what he was saying.
Yes.
And last time in Austria, they didn't tell him he was wrong.
No.
But he was telling him he was wrong today.
Yeah. No, they're kissing his butt in Austria. But here they were telling him he was wrong. Max then comes over the line and just goes, whatever, man. And then you're just like, what? And that's when you're just like this, like that meme where they're like, oh, what do I do? Turn away. And the commentators don't know what to do because they're like, this is awkward. But they're also thinking about when Ted got blacklisted by Max for talking about 2021 too many times. And so they're like, oh, I'm nervous. And they needed Nico Rosberg this week is what they needed. Dude. They needed that sassy little Sasquatch to come in here and do what he does. And he was there. So maybe I don't understand why he wasn't. But anyway, then the next time he gets all kinds of mad, and GP comes back on the line and is like, I'm not going to argue this. It's childish.
That's kind of phenomenal, actually.
I'm like, yo, we've seen some tension between him and his engineer in the past, but never.
They chalk it up to just how they are.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you guys are really, Max is really mean to his engineer.
This is different. I don't know what's happening. This is also coming off the backs of a week where Sergio Pérez has self-admitted that he doubts that he'll be at Red Bull past next year, even though he has
some
a 2-year.
say the rest of the season.
Correct. Helmut Marko has said there are options on the table. We're pondering out options, and that our driver selection at the moment is fluid.
It's a great word.
It's a great word. And
so
haunting.
Ambiguous, so open.
So haunting.
So meaningful.
And I think what frustrates Max, if I had to become a lawyer assigned to his case, because that's the only way that I would take it.
Interesting.
Would be, I've given us 3 championships.
Mm-hmm.
And now we know it wasn't just the car. It was me.
Yeah, because if it was just the car, Checo would have.
He was P2 last year with the most dominant car, but he was not as consistent as he could have been.
Yeah, nowhere
So
close.
we see the consistency from Max. And now we've got a year where not only is the car not delivering anymore, they're not developing anymore. They're not moving forward. And now not only are they not moving forward, they're not supporting him in race strategy. And not only are they not supporting him in race strategy, the driver that was P2 last year and backing him up is now not making it out of Q1.
He's also P7.
And crashing the car and plummeting down.
Yeah.
Like, you signed a guy for a 1+1 and he's performed worse. since. And so Max is going, there's all this turmoil inside of the team.
Yes.
We're not now performing. I don't have a teammate that can
Our
at least
god of
play
an
game.
engineer is
Like,
gone.
He's sitting there in P3 going like, why aren't we P1 and 2? Or why don't I have a wingman on my right now?
Yeah, this is a team sport. Now, Lando might have something else to say about being a team sport today, but this is a team sport, and strategy has to involve both teammates.
Yeah.
And you're able to do more when you've got someone who's right there with you.
Yep.
Teddy the other day was talking about how for qualifying, Piastri qualified, it was like 4/1000th of a second behind Lando.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed his pass that he has to get into the pit area. He said, it's the width of my pass. That's how close those two are.
Yeah.
In that car. Checo was in the wall. Out in Q1. He's like 3 miles behind Max, right? Like, yes, that, like you're saying, would be immensely frustrating. Where Max is like, hey, why do I have to go at it alone? Right. Both these McLarens, they're right there. They're freaking 4/1000th off.
Right, wrong, or indifferent how you feel about what happened today with McLaren as a constructor.
Yeah,
they have a problem that Red Bull wishes they had.
Oh God,
we're trying to figure out which one of our drivers to back.
When was the last time they had to think about that?
Mark Webber and Vettel?
I mean,
maybe.
It hasn't been Max and Checo.
It wasn't Max and Gasly. It wasn't Max and Albon. And it wasn't Max and Ricciardo. Well, it didn't have a chance to be Max or Ricciardo.
I mean, what a different thing that could have been. But no, I mean, McLaren, for all their woes, you're right. Red Bull looks and says, God, we'd like to have that problem. We want to have that problem. Checo's not allowing us to have that problem. And I think you're hitting on the head. It's not just the lack of sleep. That's part of it. It's all these other things that Max is starting to just boil over. And we keep bringing this up until it's finally decided. These are the kind of things that may push him to think more about another team.
100%.
Because he's like, wait, 100%. What are we doing here?
100%.
And I think today you just saw that bubble up. And Max racing mad isn't good. No. Like he
was making mistakes out there.
He was making mistakes he wouldn't make.
No.
He was
driving emotionally.
Yeah. He got into a racing incident with Hammy.
He got into like 5 racing incidents.
Anyway, I mean, a lot going on with Red Bull right now. Checo, he knows he's not there next year. A lot of folks are saying, is he even here after the summer break?
Yeah. Okay, so let's stop here for a second. Let's talk about a prediction. So we've got Red Bull, which technically is one team, but they're 2 teams. It's Red Bull and it's VCARB.
They have different uniforms.
They have 4 drivers and 1 reserve on the grid. And so we've got Max Verstappen, we've got Sergio Pérez, Checo, or we've got Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda. So theoretically, Yuki, Sergio, and Max are in contract for next year. But everyone knows Red Bull contracts mean nothing. So
literally nothing.
They're saying it's fluid. What do you feel like is going to happen within between the now and the rest of this year? Who's out?
I think when Checo crashed out in Q1, and this is not an original thought to me, this is the Sky Sports team. They're like, oh my God. They're like, Teddy was like, everyone's getting on us and saying like, stop talking about Checo leaving. And they're like, we're just reporting on the fact that Red Bull's talking about Checo and this not being sustainable. Some quick numbers here. In the constructors, McLaren has now passed Ferrari, and they are second in the constructors. Red Bull's at 389, McLaren's at 338. This is not sustain. Ferrari's at 322. We have 3 teams in the 300s. This is incredible. But Horn Dog and the rest of the team is saying we are fighting with 1 race driver
Exactly.
right now. This is not and this is not sustainable this year.
Exactly.
So my prediction is, honestly, Checo out in Q1. I think he has one more shot, and
so you think going
he got to
into
7th.
this next race at Spa,
I think this is it.
If he doesn't perform,
If he
we'll
crashes,
come back from the summer break and there'll be a new Red Bull driver. That's the lead time that they would need to prepare that person.
That's where I'm at. I think if he even gets close to a crash, if he's not performing, if he's not getting like top 5, I think he's done, because McLaren is too good. Mercedes now, they have multiple podiums in the last few races. Ferrari, they finished decent today, but Ferrari turns it around. Now you've got Mercedes, McLaren, and Ferrari all hunting you down.
Yeah.
And you've got Max, who can't fend off 6 other drivers.
No.
So I think,
well, he will be able to
in the championship,
but the constructor will.
The constructors, he will not be able to.
So then who are the 4 people that will be driving for
it's
those
gonna be
2
Lawson.
teams?
It's gonna be Lawson.
So okay,
Lawson.
Red Bull. Who are Red Bull's drivers?
Lawson and Max.
Lawson and Max.
Ricardo's not getting it. He's not been consistent enough.
Tsunoda's not getting it.
Tsunoda's not going to go to Red Bull. Period.
And you don't think that they're going to take a risk on a young F2 driver?
No, because they got Lawson. Lawson came in. He scored points in Singapore. One of the hardest races of the year. Swam in the deep end.
Did Formula 2000.
Swam well.
Yeah.
I think this is where
he's been allegedly promised a seat from Marco.
Yeah, and Danny, I love Danny. Danny is not performing. Yuki.
Well, they think he's on the same track as Perez. If he doesn't perform this weekend and next, which he didn't, his race was
it's not
nothing
as dire though. It's not as dire with RB, because RB is like, you're not supposed to win. It's like,
I don't know if Lauren Leckie feels that way. I don't know if their team principal feels that way.
RB is the Checo of F1, where it's like, you're supposed to be competitive, RB. You're never gonna win. You are never gonna win. Oh. You're just here. I did that the wrong time.
You did the wrong time.
Sorry.
RB is the Checo of Formula One. That is excellent.
They're not ever gonna win, and that's the deal. You get to play with the big boys. You get to develop our drivers. You're never gonna be P1. So
you might win a race here or there, get a podium here or there, but you're never going to be competitive. So they'll let Ricardo just wait it out for the rest of the season. They won't pick him up for next year.
Yeah, because there's no pressure. Red Bull, there's pressure for them to win constructors again.
Right.
There's pressure for them to have 2 race drivers who are within a card length of each other during qualifying. Again, not one on third, one in the wall. So,
and you don't think that they're going to look back on last year when they put him in the RB20 or 19 and go, oh, Ricardo was, X amount.
Well, RB supposedly got a lot of the pieces of that car last year, and look where he's at, right?
No, I agree with you.
So it's just, I don't think Danny's the one who's going to go up. I think they, they benefit from new energy. Lawson's hungry. Lawson's talented. He's got new energy. He is untested in some respects, but he's tested enough for them, I think, to have the confidence to put him in. And hey, you sink or swim. We'll put you in. We'll give you half a season. Let's go. Like, the guy's got to perform better than Checo. Checo's nowhere right now.
Yes, you say that, but he did not. Lawson performed, but he didn't outperform Yuki last year. And I get it. It was his first year. He was a couple races in comparison to Yuki.
Danny's not outperforming Yuki. Who for you is going in the second Red Bull seat? Because someone, I will put money on it. I know we've already got a side thing going with Bottas, which today I was a little nervous. My brother texted me. He's like, hey, you might owe James $30.
What's your brother's name?
Phil. Hey, Phil, one of our most dedicated listeners.
Phil's my guy.
Boston.
Phil's on my side on this one, by the way. I feel the brotherly vengeance coming towards you.
I'm going to owe you money. I'm not going to owe you money because Bottas is not getting any points this season. However, I'm willing to put money on the fact that Yuki's not going to Red Bull.
Yeah. Well, I think we all think Yuki should go to Red Bull out of all of those people. Like, if you list the possibilities at the moment, should it be Yuki, should it be Lawson, or should it be Daniel Ricciardo? I would say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it should be Yuki Tsunoda.
But when in F1 does what should happen
I
actually
agree.
happen? Today was a perfect example of it.
I think what will happen is Sergio will get flicked.
Or just out. He's just done.
I think they'll give him the option to go to AlphaTauri. I don't think he'll do it. No. I think they'll put Ricciardo in the seat and they'll say, do it for the rest of the season or you're done. And
Horner loves Ricciardo so much, though.
Not to the point. Okay, you know what will make Horner not love Ricciardo? Sitting in a Red Bull seat and not giving him any friggin' points every week. And so he's just going to cut his losses. Or
they're gambling with the Constructors Championship at this point.
They don't have a choice, though, because I don't think any one of those three drivers is going to give them anything that Checo's giving them now. Maybe 1 or 2 more points. Tell me one of those three drivers is going to be up there with Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, or Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, or George Russell. Like, please.
Dude, I think Red Bull's losing the Constructors.
Red Bull is going to slip away from Red Bull.
McLaren's going to win the Constructors.
I'm with you on this.
I literally, in that moment, I'm like, oh my God, none of those guys can hang with the rest of that field right now. Checo can't.
There's 6 other drivers. There's no way. And not even taking into the fact that they need at least 2 or 3 weekends to get their gummy little fists around the RP20. The car's a handful.
Yeah, it's not happening. Wow, that's sobering. I had not really even thought about that. Yeah, logically, they just can't do it.
Yeah, Mercedes will win this.
No, it's going to be McLaren.
Powered by Mercedes.
Which will make Mercedes feel so good about themselves.
I don't think Mercedes is that excited about it. Kind of like how Ferrari felt when Haas was in front of them last week.
Right? You heard it here, folks. McLaren's the new Constructors Championship.
There's unless they crap the bed.
Yeah.
There's no. I don't see any other.
Well, think about this. McLaren had a strategy kerfuffle today, and they still won 1-2.
Exactly.
Because their car is the fastest car, period.
Yes.
And Red Bull is losing the development war, and now they are fighting with one driver because their other driver can't get it together.
Right. And their one driver is a basket case at the moment.
Max?
Yes.
Yeah. So the one driver can't get together. The other one is basket case. Yeah.
Because he's not, and I don't think it's going to get better. He's just going to be frustrated.
Do you think this is the new norm? Like, is
for
today?
Red Bull?
Well, yeah. Is today kind of a new norm?
Well, Ben, you're the one that says that data doesn't lie.
It's true.
And if we go off of Checo's current performance and the way that he's been coming out the gate since, the last 7 races, it's not good.
Okay. Dude, this is so sobering. Since Imola, 8th DNF, 8th, 7th, 17th, 7th. God, that's bad. It's not so bad.
It's not good. What we're seeing now is what Alex Albon described when he was asked what it's like to be Max's teammate.
Yeah.
The car gets pointier and pointier, and you try to do what he does, and you can't get it to work.
Yeah. I think what we're seeing is the inevitable take place. I think Checo, he gets one more race. But even then, I feel like with those types of performances, the team's got to look at that and just say, dude, our hands are tied. There's performance clauses in that contract. You're clearly not where we need you to be. It is going to cost us the championship this year.
It's already cost them the championship.
Yeah. McLaren had a 40-point haul today.
Yeah.
And they're within a couple races of catching Red Bull.
Yeah. Well, and here's the haunting part is Andreas Seidel let it slip today that they have a brand new rear wing for Spa, which is, if they get faster, they will be the new dominant car. It will be, it's a toss-up right now on the data between them and Max. But as a whole,
as a
coming into
whole,
this race this
as a
week, we're
team,
talking
yeah.
medium speed corners. We're coming from high speed corners of Silverstone. We're coming from, I mean, Oscar was on it at
he was
Monaco.
phenomenal.
And
Yeah.
like their car is good everywhere. They've got an all-round car. We
Dude,
thought it was impossible. And they're just
it's
good
real.
everywhere.
It is real. Also,
Zach Brown is a genius.
think about this. Zach Brown took a step kind of out of the picture a little bit. Obviously, he's still in it. And look what they're doing.
Oh, they're thriving.
My God.
Yeah.
Fun. No,
that's because you and I are leadership.
True. We are. We're like, just
Junkies.
put the right people in the right
people.
place.
You empower them. It's incredible. Okay. I'm not sure. My people are checking. Pretty sure it's the best Formula One team ever. It's orange like my hair. It's amazing.
In honor of the RNC this week. Vance Revolution. McLaren is coming for Red Bull. We've spent like 25 minutes talking about McLaren because there's so much talk. Have we really dived into? Okay, I don't think I've asked you this question yet. I'm going to ask you it real quick, and we'll close out McLaren.
Well, we talking about Red Bull too.
We did talk about Red Bull a little bit. Oscar.
Yep.
Should Oscar have won today?
Yes.
Why?
Let me ask you a question. Should Lando Norris have won today?
I'm going to say yes.
And I agree with you.
But you just said that Oscar should have won today.
Yeah.
They both should have won today.
I don't think either of them should have been put in this position.
I
think the team are still, like we said last week, they are acting like top of the mid-pack, scraping for clawing their way
it's
into
not where you are, McLaren.
the top of the field.
They're top dogs.
They're top dogs. So stop acting like an underdog.
Yeah.
And so it's just a bad call. It was unnecessary.
So if you're McLaren, what does your strategy look like today? Because they brought in Lando to stay ahead of Hamilton.
Yep.
But that then means when they bring Piastri in, he's going to be behind Lando. And he'd been leading to that point, being like half of the race.
Yeah, but that was their argument, but that wasn't true.
Okay.
They played it so safe today.
Yeah. Well, there was at one point they were like, oh my God, we're going to get caught. And I was like, he's 17
so far behind
you
on old tires. You're not going to get caught. And he hasn't pitted yet.
It's
like they were like the safety car twitchy. They're like, there's going to be a safety car. We box. I know there's going to be a safety car. And it's like they had the little angel on either shoulder. One was the Pirelli tire, and then the other one was like, Burt Mylander in the safety car. And it's just
they were a little jumpy.
They were jumpy. They were playing it crazy safe. They should have either done that or owned the decision as a team and said, Lando, we're making a decision that's going to be crap for you.
Yeah.
You're going to come in early because we need to protect your position from Mercedes. They've been the wild card. We don't know if they've let all their pace out yet.
Yeah.
So we're going to box you first. It's going to cost Oscar his like P1 position because you're going to come out ahead of him. You're going to give it back to him when he gets back out.
And give it back to him right away.
What they did is they executed that strategy without talking to their drivers, assuming that the person that's been created in a test tube essentially to win races since the time he's been in a go-kart at like 5 years old is going to give up his race win.
The guy who's been, and this is the part where it was frustrating, if you're a fan of Lando, today was very frustrating because this guy should have had at least 3 or 4 wins this season by now.
100%.
And again, different reasons. We wanted to do it last week, why that's not the case.
Yeah.
As a team, you have to say, listen, this guy's going to be pissed because he's going to be leading the race. But he's only going to be leading because of our strategy call.
Correct.
And because we had to bring him in first and then bring Oscar in after. So you're right. They should have said, listen, Lando, we're bringing you in first, covering off Mercedes. As soon as we bring in Oscar and he's behind you, you've got to give it back right away. That's the deal. And as long as there's expectation, it helps with the disappointment of it.
But instead, they executed that, and then he came out and they said radio check, and he goes loud and clear. Hey, now that you've gotten these tires on, let me give you the real sucker punch of this news. You know what they could have done? Hey, Lando, we want to pit you. You've got to give Lando the position back after. Or you got to give Oscar the position back after. Or what you can do is you can stay out as long as you want, but Hamilton will overtake you. What do you want to do?
Yeah, give the man a choice.
He would have gone, I'm taking P2 all day.
Yeah.
But instead, you put him in a position where he's thinking about the fact that he's second in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah.
He's got Max, he knows not where, but far behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And those freaks of a human watch the LED screens as they drive those cars around the track at 180, 200 miles an hour, which is insane to me. So he probably knows what's going on with Max. He probably knows what position he's in. It's a big old pole with all
Max
the
probably has
the
radio in one of his ears too, listening to the whole conversation.
Exactly. And so we're putting this guy in an impossible situation where his team is going, you need to give it back to him. The guy can't catch him to save his life. Like Oscar self-admitted that his third stint was terrible.
It was 6
awful.
seconds behind Lando.
Exactly. And Lando's on older tires, proving a magnificent point. I am the team leader on this team. I am the one that deserves this race win.
Yes.
And if he wants it, he can come and get it. Now, if he catches me, I'll give it back to him.
Yeah.
Which I felt was fair. But the problem with all of this is that neither of them should have been in this position whatsoever because McLaren put them there. And so now Norris is vilified. And Oscar's race glory of a win is taken from him because the dude purposefully slowed down to a pretty much snail's pace on the straightaway so that he could take it. It was painful to watch. It was embarrassing.
It was frustrating for all the reasons you mentioned. And also at the end of the day, this is a sport.
Yeah.
You want the sport and the folks who win to have done it on merit, to have done it because they deserved it, they earned it, they fought for it, and they deserve every ounce of that win. And when someone has to slow down, imagine for a second, I'm going to just translate this into American sports for a second because F1's not an American sport. Imagine if you're in a baseball game and a pitcher throws and they hit one of the batters. And they're like, oh, no, I hit the batter. And it was my mistake. So the next time that guy's up, they then give him a softball to hit a freaking grand slam.
Exactly.
It's like, wait, what are we doing?
Right. It's a great analogy.
In sports, crap happens.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that
you signed up for this.
It doesn't mean that like when Lando's six seconds in front, that he has to literally stop on the straight, let his teammate pass, because the team called the strategy poorly.
Exactly.
So I think that's the thing that's frustrating is like, that's not sport. That's not because that car is not supposed to slow down that slow. It's supposed to be pedal to the metal. The moments the lights go out, strategy be damned. Like you're supposed to race your heart out. And when there's ever a sniff that merit isn't what's getting the win or what's getting someone a seat, that's where you and I get frustrated.
Yes.
That's why Lance Stroll is so frustrating to us.
That's why he frustrates us.
That's why he's forever frustrating to us.
And here's the thing. Lando said there's an element of selfishness in this sport, which is true.
You have
to be. I think of Vettel. He was told to give back the position. Didn't. World champion. Team respected him more for it.
Of course.
You think of all of these different world champions who are just... Everyone thinks of Alonso. They're like, yeah, man, you wouldn't want to cross him. Everyone thinks of Max, and they're like, yeah, I wouldn't want to be his teammate. Everyone thinks of Lando. They're like, I'd go out and have a beer with Lando. And is that the world championship mentality?
You know who's not complaining? The sponsors.
Not at all.
For those teams who are getting buku bucks because those guys are ruthless and they're delivering and everyone wants their merch. And the stock
Google Chrome
of that
is
team,
loving there. DeWalt is loving it.
But guess what? Like, is Lando too nice to be a world champion?
After this weekend, I would say yes. David Coulthard, who is, he was Red Bull's first driver, and he was commentating it on F1 TV. And he had mentioned that he had been asked to give a place back for a race win once, and he obliged to the team order, and he regrets it to this day.
Mm.
And here's the thing that it made me think of. When we think of Michael Schumacher's world championships, we don't think of the amount of times that Ferrari had those crazy deals where basically if you were his teammate, you had to let him win no matter what, even to the point where he was embarrassed by it and would like give people his first place trophies. Like it's crazy. But no one thinks about that.
No.
What do you think when you say Michael Schumacher?
World champion.
Nico
One of the
Rosberg.
goats.
Nico Rosberg and Hamilton had one of the most tumultuous seasons. Crazy drama. All kinds of nuts things happen on track that season. No one thinks about that one. Do you think Nico Rosberg cares when he puts his head down at night and he goes, I'm a Formula One world champion. I did what I had to.
Yeah.
In 20 years, is Lando Norris, if he loses this year's championship by 7 points, which is what he gave up today by giving Oscar that. Do you think in 20 years he's going to care that he pissed off a couple of mechanics and his team boss that he probably doesn't speak to anymore? No.
He wouldn't.
That's the part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be an awkward month and a half, and then the team would realize we can't do this without Lando either. So we've got to make amends and don't do it again.
Yeah.
Give yourself a little Max Verstappen slap on the wrist and keep going and win the championship.
Yeah.
You know what he should have done? He should have won by 12 seconds. I take it back. Oscar should have won, but Lando took advantage of it. And this is racing.
This is
Danny Rick and
is.
him have a 1-2 in Monza, the only other 1-2 that McLaren has had in decades. Because of what? A crash that happened between Max and Lewis, and they took advantage of it. Take advantage of it.
I know, God, well said. I mean, this is where I care deeply about people, so I like to think of myself as a nice guy.
Yeah, you and I both are, which is why we're not F1 drivers.
This is true. There are also certain areas of my life where I'm very persistent, and I realize this thing's not going to happen unless I make it happen. Yeah. So with Lando, it's like, bro, no one's handing you a race win, including your team. Your team's not going to hand it to you. If anything, they're going to, in this situation, ask you to give it away. Yeah. So I do wish Lando would have said, guys, stop asking me to give it back. I am P2. Not going to happen. We're not just going for constructors. I am going to try to win this championship 100%. This year, this driver's championship. So Oscar wants this. He can come and get me.
But that's my thing is that like, okay, well, we had to stop. We had to do this. You cover it off. You guys make the call. I'm going to race.
Yeah.
So if he can catch up.
Great.
And Lando said this, tell him to catch up. I'll give him the spot. They did some simulations after the race. I think it's Ruth on Formula One TV. She used to be an Alfa Romeo strategist for Charles Leclerc. And she said, had they have done the stop in the way that they should have, which is Oscar has the choice because he was the race leader to do the stop whenever he wants.
Yeah.
If he had done it first and then Lando after him, he still would have come out ahead of Lando, but Lando would have been so much closer. And then if he had had his pace that he had in the third stint, he probably could have taken Oscar on merit, which would have been fine. And Oscar would have obviously known as well. But this we'll never know because the question was taken away from us. The ability of the race drivers and their craft was taken away from us because of the team. And I think at the end of the day, I think what frustrates me most about the whole situation is that Lando was vilified and Oscar was robbed.
Yeah.
And neither of those things had to happen.
Yeah, neither had to happen. And it's two great racing drivers who, you know, we didn't get to see ultimately what should have been the result today because of the strategy. So, but again, Oscar, cheers to you. A race win is a significant thing. And Lando, that sucks.
It sure does.
But he was a team player.
Let's talk about whose else weekend sucked. Let's talk about Georgie Poo.
George.
Let's talk about George of the Jungle. Watch out for Q1.
Dude, George. What a bummer in Q1.
He did not make it out of qualifying session.
Yeah, where was he? He was 17th, right behind Sergio Pérez.
He was at a bit of a rough weekend.
It's tough. It makes those moments like in Austria just seem like a total one-off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's the thing for him, both him and so Perez crashed in Q1, qualified obviously towards the back half. Russell's was because they put enough fuel in the car. He botched the first run. Bailed again on the second, and then didn't have enough for a third. So by the time he came into the pits, the track was ramped up, and that's when like Danny Rick went to like P1 in qualifying.
Yeah,
so
no,
it was like
insane.
The track was just ramping up like crazy because we all know Danny's not P1.
But here's the question though: why wasn't there enough fuel for the entire?
Well, because he botched and called out of the laps.
I know, but
and they never put enough in for the entire.
No, I know they don't do that, but like you think they would do enough to account for those types of situations?
No, because you can't. Every kilo of fuel is like a tenth or whatever they say. So they literally run those things on fumes for qualifying.
Yeah,
it's insane. That's why you see them come into the pits and you're like, why don't they just change the tires and let them go? They wheel them into the garage because that's the only place you can fuel the car.
Yeah.
And so they're literally refueling with just enough vapor to get them around the track again. But I think the reason why he lost is because he went into the weekend ahead of his teammate by 1 point at 111 points. He now finishes this weekend at 116 points in 8th place in the World Championship standing. And his teammate jumps up to 6th place with 125 points.
Huge.
Leapfrogs Sergio Pérez. And now, instead of being 1 point ahead of his teammate at Mercedes, he's 1 point ahead of his rivals at Red Bull.
Yeah.
George had a bad weekend.
Yeah, George, I mean, he finished 8th. Checo finished in 7th. And yeah, it just wasn't a good weekend for him. They got stuck. They were trailing. God, who were they trailing? Was it they were just stuck. Him and Checo. I don't think it was one of the Haas's. It may have been one of the Astons. And they just couldn't get past.
The Astons were at the front in the first stint. They were at the front because they had soft tires on, so they had created this massive DRS train.
It was like you see like the front of the pack go through,
yeah,
and then you just see this parade of cars.
Yeah, literally. The like tracker on the top right of the screen, it looked like the old like Nokia phone Snake.
Yes,
it was just like all of these dots following each other around. Yeah, I think for George, we've got to see something in this next race. Not for his performance overall. Like George is settled. I think that's he's proven himself as a driver. But for George to go into the summer break on race win, DNF, 8th place. We need to get Georgie Poo back up.
Yeah,
again.
No, he needs to get
He needs to have a good weekend at Spa.
Yeah.
He's historically pretty good at Spa.
Yeah, no, yeah, he needs to get back up. And with Mercedes too, like their drivers are obviously a lot closer to each other in 6th and in 8th. But also it's Mercedes.
Right.
They've had a turn of form.
Yep.
They've been delivering as a team the last couple of races, even though George didn't have a great performance today. They've had podiums in the last, I think it's the last, let me look, I'll make sure my data is correct here.
It's been a lot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last 5 races, they've had podiums. So they've turned a corner. But George needs to shift there as well and have a better performance going into the summer break. Because today just was a bummer. And it's always rough when two top teams are both out in Q1.
Yeah.
Red Bull and a Mercedes. They don't belong.
And they don't belong there because they started down there and they ended in the points.
Yeah. No, of course they don't belong there.
At Hungary, where it's in practically impossible to overtake. Like, they did it.
They did. So, I mean, I will say for Checo, that is one good thing. One redemptive thing he can pull out of this weekend was that he qualified in the back and got all the way up to 7th. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But why are you out in Q1?
Yeah.
Well, we need to fix that, Checo.
100%. I would say the other loser this weekend would be, well, there were many, Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso finishes P11, second week in a row, and the second time this season he has been outscored by his team member, even though his team member got a measly 1 point. Yeah, I think he finished in 10th place, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, he did. 10th and 11th.
Stroll.
Last week they were 7th and 8th. I don't like that Lance is finishing ahead of Alonso.
It's only 2 races. Here's the thing about this track is it is imperative to qualify well. He was on a flyer of a lap that would have gotten him out of where he ended in qualifying. However, there was a red flag thrown into his disappointment too early. He was livid. He was arguing with the FIA about the fact that they threw that red flag too quickly and for no reason. The car was safe. Off the track should have been yellow at most because he couldn't finish his lap. So his lap was negated. Had it have been a yellow flag, he would have been able to at least finish his run and put a time in. But it wasn't, and it got red flagged. He literally took his helmet off, took all of his stuff off before he went to the weigh station, had his cap on his jacket, and the FIA is like, stop me, like, no, you have to get weigh. Literally pulls off, just throws it across the ground, throws his hat on the ground, stands on the thing, holds his helmet, like he's just livid.
But here's the confusing thing, because there was the red flag, but there was still 2.5 minutes. And he and Max both didn't go back out. So
I don't know. I know Max, Max wasn't going to be able to do anything.
No, but Alonso had a chance. Now, again, the queue was so bad that Sainz wasn't even able to put a time on.
Right.
So he would have had to literally stay in his car, get to the front of the queue, get out, and try to get a better time. Now, Ricciardo was the only one who improved his time by like 1 place.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything, phenomenal, but he had a chance to possibly put another time in. But it was the FIA's fault too, because the FIA did park for a minute, and they're like, okay, we're done. Qualifying's over. And then it was like, oh, actually, no, qualifying's not over.
Exactly.
We're going to go back. So I think there was confusion there too. But yeah, I mean, it was a frustrating weekend for him.
I mean, he was mad on the radio too. He was like, just let me race. Like he was this is not what he wanted. He signed with Aston, and this is not the performance that he wanted.
This is Aston is the new Renault. They're the new Alpine. I hate to say that, but that's
so sad, man.
That is where they're at. And he left Renault. He left Alpine. He doesn't want to be the midfield.
He wants to rip.
And it's literally Aston has 69 points. Mercedes has 241.
They're not catching them.
And there was a point where Aston was actually not that far from Mercedes because Mercedes was struggling. And now it's like, well, RB is 33 points and they're right behind us. So it'd be hard for them to kind of catch us because points are so slim where they're at.
Yeah, they are the Alpine of like what Alpine was to 2022. They are
Alonso's
to
worst
2023.
He's just joined the same team.
Exactly. He's made lateral moves, and this is his last deal. This is it. This is it for him.
The only saving grace potentially is Honda. When Honda comes in, if they can get the car to...
If they get the new regs right and the Honda engine is as powerful as it is in the Red Bull.
But yeah. You know who else, speaking of Alpine, who had a terrible weekend?
Alpine.
Your boys Alpine.
Man, Gasly
DNFs for the second time.
I'm waiting for one of them.
Ocon finishes 18th, and you're convinced that they are going to climb
up. They're going to climb up. Here's the thing. I'm waiting for one of them to overtake Ollie Behrman in the
dude. It's not going to happen. Dude,
it's not individually, but it's going to happen.
Alpine's the new Williams. Aston's the new Alpine.
You're so wrong
I'm
about
not
this.
wrong, dude. Alpine had a terrible weekend. What even happened to Gasly's car?
Well, no one
I don't
knows
even
what's
know.
happening to any Alpine. That's not the question. No one cares what's happening to the Alpines. That's
they've
just
cut
where they're
so
going to
much
L.
weight off their car, James.
They have cut so much weight. You know what?
and
You're
they-
right. You know what? You're right. They have. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. Look, I'm
And
not
that's
Team
really-
Alpine.
But you're
I'm just
convinced
saying you
they're gonna
can't
get to
write
the
them
midfield.
off. They're going to be in the mid pack before the end of this. They're not going to be the new Williams. They're
They
not going to be
are.
the new Haas.
They
They're
are.
not going to be the new Kick.
They
They are not. They're going to be above all of those teams.
All I said is of the new Williams.
I don't even know what that means. So you think they're going to finish?
No.
They're going to finish ninth.
What I'm saying is last year, Williams finished in 7th with 28 points.
Oh, I'd be happy if they finished there.
This year, they're going to actually, sorry, Haas is the new Williams because Haas has 27
I'm like,
points.
this is. I was like, I don't know how
Alpine is the new
Haas.
Well, Kick's the new Haas because
Kick's the new Haas. Alpine's
Haas.
the new Haas. No, Kick's the new Haas.
Tough. This is really tough when you start doing this. Yeah, I mean, God, they would die for last year's results. They had 120 points last year.
They would be loving it. And that's where they will be by the end of the year. They're not going to be at 120, but they will definitely be higher. They will overtake Williams. They will overtake Haas. I guarantee you. I got $30 on this. What do I have to lose? A lot.
No, you have $30 on the fact that Kick is going to score a point.
Okay, good. I'm not putting $30 on Alpine, but I'll put it on Alpine.
We're going to owe each other some money. You're going to owe me some money at the end of this season.
No way. No way.
Haas today, a little bit of disappointment. They scored 13th and 15th. They had a good run of form the last couple races. Hulk was doing his magic and didn't work out today.
Yeah,
but 13th and 15th.
Honestly, for Ferrari got some pretty good points this weekend.
They did, yeah.
Haas is where we thought they'd kind of be, flailing around. It's a slow speed track. We weren't expecting too much from them.
Yeah, they just
didn't
perform.
Aston was, kind of whatever. Honestly, everything other than Mercedes and McLaren and Red Bull right now is a bit blah.
It really is. Again, Ferrari today was nice. Good for them.
Williams is literally nowhere right now. I
can't.
The only time we saw Williams was right before Hamilton and Max crashed because they overtook Alex Albon as the back marker.
Alex doesn't deserve to be a back marker. That's
Williams has got to do something. What is going to happen with them for the rest of this year? What are they going to do?
They've had 5 DNFs as a team this year. They've had only 2 points score, or sorry, they've had 2 races where they finished in the points. Both were Albon. It's just such a disappointing season. They have 4 total points.
Here's the thing about these teams at the moment that are at the bottom of the pack. You have Alpine, which is always going to be news because they're kind of like the only customer team. Sorry, they're not a customer team. They're their own team.
They're their own works team.
Their own works team. That's just kind of nowhere. So that's always the bit of the story for them. So they're always going to be talked about. Plus, they have some pretty big investors.
But also, they're like, and this is a terrible example, but maybe the French people think it this way. Ferrari is like the Italians.
100%.
Alpine's the French.
Yes.
It's literally France's team.
Yes.
And they're doing terribly.
So they're always going to be talked about.
Yeah.
And they've got Gasly, they've got Ocon, there's a bit of drama there, all that kind of stuff. And they just kind of stay in the lines. Haas is going to get talked about this year because they're performing like no one thought was even possible for them anymore. Yeah. We all thought that they were going to get sold. We thought Audi was going to buy them. And that didn't happen. And so now we're talking about them. RB is always going to get, like, V-Carb is always going to get talked about because they're attached to Red Bull. The only reason why Kick is getting talked about right now is because they suck and everyone's like, Audi's going to take it over.
Yeah. Audi's going to save kick, hopefully.
Why do I care about Williams anymore? First 5 races of the year, it was about they didn't have enough chassis. They didn't have this. Where's their performance in comparison to last year? They haven't taken exactly.
Logan didn't even get to race in Australia.
Has forgotten about Williams. James Vowles used to be the hot stuff in the paddock, and now no one talks about it.
Well, there's literally nothing to say.
There's nothing to talk about. It
when you're racing
how
and you're
have
not
we
racing,
gotten here?
They are probably still asking themselves how, and if they knew the answer, then they would be in a different position. I mean, do you just have such a bad development or such bad infrastructure or such lack in your infrastructure to where you just can't win the development war? And maybe that's what it is. It's just F1 is really just a development war. Whoever's got the infrastructure, whoever's got the money, whoever's got the talent is going to win the development war. You've seen McLaren go from 0 to hero in 2 years.
Yes.
Williams is, the rock stars last year to just absolute abysmal performance this year. So,
and maybe we're on the waiting game for them because McLaren, on the surface looks like it did that, but let's not forget that they started investing into their infrastructure again they did do something in 19 something or other because they've been around forever. But in 2017-18 is when they really doubled down and revamped everything.
Yeah.
And now it's starting. That's 5 years later, 6 years later. Like, that's crazy. Williams has had 2. This is their second year of James Vowles. Their third year or fourth year of private investment. So it's early days, but I'm looking for the leaps that I see from Aston Martin. I'm looking for the leaps that I see from these other teams.
Even from Haas.
100%.
My God.
Haas has less money. I'm convinced Haas has less money put into it than that. Not Gene Haas as a whole. He got the money for days. That NASCAR life. But
they need some real investors, though.
They need some
Chipotle, I always love me.
MoneyGram,
Chipotle. Come on, guys. Like, you've been riding those investors into the sunset. Like, let's get some new money in here. Let's get some American money in here.
Come on, baby.
This is America.
Why ain't Home Depot sponsoring you?
Yeah, well, they're sponsoring McLaren because of.
Are they sponsoring McLaren?
Yeah.
Home Depot is a McLaren
Home Depot
sponsor?
Is absolutely.
I might have to change teams.
And DeWalt.
I know. I mean, I knew DeWalt was
the color.
Which I love.
It's the color, but it's also Zach Brown because he's an American.
We love it. We love it. We love me, America. I mean, they got Google Chrome. You rip when you got Google Chrome.
It's all Zach.
Zach's the guy.
Brown.
I mean, he has a marketing background.
I mean, he's American.
Okay, so here's the thing. This race was boring up until the last 15 laps.
It was boring, but it was the drama that Max was providing and that Lando and Oscar were providing at the end. Like, those are the things that kept it interesting.
Those are the things that made it really.
But other
really
than that, it was just kind of not a whole lot on that.
Not a whole lot. Not an easy track to overtake at. Unlike this weekend at Spa.
Oh, yes.
Oh, the track of all tracks. I am
fantastic.
waiting for the year that they remove it because it's too dangerous. I love me some Spa.
It's a huge track.
It's
like
enormous.
In the mountains.
It's one of the longest on the calendar.
It's like what is it? The difference in elevation, I think, is the size of Big Ben. This was a Teddy statistic.
That's crazy.
He's like, oh yeah, you could stick Big Ben in here, and this is the difference in elevation.
In the valley.
Yeah, it's just
where they go down and come
bonkers.
Back up. It's incredible.
Piastri crashed out in turn 1 last year.
He sure did.
And he was like, oh, I guess he hit me.
Yeah, exactly. Classic Piastri. I stick to my guns that he is the new Niki Lauda. 100%. But it's going to be a phenomenal race. What are your predictions? You went first last time, so I'm happy to go first this time.
You asked me. I'm just going to go. It's going to be McLaren 1-2.
Okay.
And it's hard to pick a third at this point because Red Bull's upgrades aren't really paying off for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go Ferrari.
Okay. So this is what you do when I ask for predictions. You give me teams, and I need names.
I'm gonna give you signs.
I need 3
Carlos
names.
Sainz.
Who's winning? Who's coming?
It's gonna be Lando.
You're really
It's gonna be
struggling with
Lando.
predictions. Okay, so Lando wins.
Lando wins. Oscar's second. Sainz is third.
Okay,
Because we're really always so accurate on predictions.
I mean, you're neither of us.
Well, you were.
I had some people in the
You
podium.
had the teams.
Yeah, I had the teams right.
Yeah, I didn't have any of that.
Actually, come to think about it, I think mine was reverse ordered.
It was.
Yeah.
So what's
my
your
1,
prediction?
2, 3 was actually 3, 2, 1, if that makes sense.
Yep.
My prediction for Spa is that we will see. I'm also going to go with a Lando win because I think this new wing is going to be nuts.
Yeah.
Oscar hasn't been great at this track, even in F2 days. And I'm going to go with Max in P2.
Oh.
And because Red Bull's fast, it's a high speed track, and I'm gonna go with Piastri in P3. So I'm gonna go for a little Red Bull Sammy.
A little Red Bull Sammy. I like that.
Yeah.
And then we go to the summer break after this,
Pretty
right?
exciting.
And we are going to come back, and Sergio's not going to be racing anymore.
And
so
on
this is our
that
last
bombshell
race with Sergio. You heard it here.
We say good night to you, or good day wherever you are listening to this. Maybe you're the person that listens to it in China,
possibly.
Well, or on the East Coast, but I'm blabbing now. So if you're listening to this still and you're listening to my blab, go ahead and hit subscribe. Go ahead and like this. Leave us a comment on YouTube. We love to respond. We love to engage. So We'll see you next time.
Thanks, folks.